Good evening. We're picking up where we left off last week. Although I've kind of forgotten how to play this game. So fingers crossed. Worst case scenario, I accidentally commit genocide. But I'll be fine, so that's okay. Didn't I want to go into that one thing with some yellow Pikmin? Sorry, some white Pikmin. So that I could dig out the stuff that was hidden. I feel like that was probably a thing that I wanted to do. I might need to go on some trips to actually stock up on my other Pikmin as well. I'll bring some extra reds, so that if I do come across flowers, I'll have fodder to throw in. That was the Citadel of Spiders, I believe. Okay, we've just started and already some of them have gotten lost. Come along, children. It does say treasures 9. I'm not sure if that's how many are remaining or if that's how many I've pulled out of it. Oh well, let's find out. Okay, so if I've already done all of this, I can just kind of speedrun the whole thing until I find something that makes my radar go off. Worst case scenario, I accidentally run a lap. Wait, hold on. I got an idea. Louis, you stay here and test how much fire the fire protection can hold up to. It's very important that we find out the upper limit. Oh, Aqua, welcome. Yes, by all means, pressure to you. Louis, I can't help but notice that you're still alive. I'm very disappointed in you. Oh. Actually, it seems like there is treasure on this one, so I should kill everything. I was gonna say starting with Louis, but then that thing volunteered. I appear to be missing two. Here they are. I was gonna say, which is concerning, because that's how many the flying ones like to carry off at a time. I do appreciate that time doesn't pass in caves. They won't kill me, Pikmin? Well, good to know. I kind of assumed that they would. They'd, like, carry them off and do indescribable things to them. I presume that this is like one of those mossy things, and that'll make these flowers bloom? Nope, it is an egg. That's kind of disgusting, I hate it. I don't think anybody's a fan of, like, when you, like, break something or squish something and then, like, a bunch of, like, maggots or whatever crawl out of it. And if somebody is a fan of that, I question their taste. Which I normally try not to do, it's just, like, a matter of principle, but in this particular instance, I'll make an exception. Alright, everybody, kill first, then eat. Gotta make sure we don't get killed while we're eating. Like that. Looks like my white Pikmin is finding something there. I will not be opening up that egg. And let's loot the bodies. A little bit more, literally than what that usually means. Oh, it's like a clamshell with a burrow in it. Nice. Oh, you had sorbet? Oh, you're not late at all. It's fine. We just started. Sorbet and tea. I don't know what a sorbet actually is, but that does sound nice. Memorial shell. That's kind of fun. I like that. It's like it preserves anything that ends up inside of it. Sorbet Cafe, the Terraria player. Like, I know... I know that guy, I just don't know what a sorbet is. I don't actually watch all that much Terraria content. Ice cream but without cream. Citrus juice, sugar, fruit pulp. That sounds lovely. Also potentially lactose friendly. Oh, Mommy, welcome. We've just begun. My water Pikmin should not be trying to put out fires. Sorbet Cafe is a YouTuber who does Terraria challenge runs. It looks like there's no treasure on this floor, so I'm just gonna try finding the exit. Oh, there's the exit. I need Pikmin to get there. I'm going through all the Pikmins. Maybe I'm actually kind of starting with 2. I originally started with 1, but I had a really bad time with it, so I just skipped to 2. And then I met Louie, and I regretted that decision. Louie's the one with the blue light on his head. Oh, you found the one Pikmin that could be set on fire. And you set it on fire. Good job. Good luck and draw. Have a good time. I wanted to get some more art done today, but like I woke up super late, and then by the time I was like ready to lock in, it was like an hour until stream. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm not getting anything done today. Do I still have my Louis guest appearance picture from last week? Yes, I do. I would have to re-import it to OBS, but I do still have it. You don't think Audrey's seen it? I think she has, yeah. From when he showed up in my instant ramen. Perish. I feel like I've already thought what was in there, so I probably needed my Pikmin to dig up whatever it was that I'm trying to dig up. Yeah, like, wasn't that like a big spider thing? Ooh, shiny. I do like shiny things. Especially when they are my shiny things or are about to become my shiny things, like this thing. Regal Diamond? I'm surprised they actually named something what it actually was. You know, in hindsight, it makes sense that the quote-unquote Citadel of Spiders would have a gigantic spider as the final boss. In hindsight, I probably should have seen that coming. Actually, not spiders, but then why would they call it the Citadel of Spiders? Therefore, they're spiders. Now, there was that other one, the shower drain. The shower room. That I should be able to get to as well. On account of draining the pool. Oliver mentions that the ship named the cave that even though they're not spiders. Well, then Olimar's wrong. I just accidentally left a single Pikmin behind. Oh well. If somebody really doesn't want to participate, they can just die. I don't care. That's the thing that sets things on fire, right? Or is it gonna be like a water thing because it's blue? Let's find out. It looks like it's making them drown. Emergency, Pikmin are suffering. If you blow the whistle at B, you might be able to help them. Yeah, so like everything else that happens to these things. Waterboarding enemy? It's more like drowning. Waterboarding is different. Okay, let's try this again. That looks like the kind of flower that spits out white Pikmin, so... I'll try making a few more of those later. I hear electricity, so I'm bringing yellow Pikmin to try and disable those before coming through here with everything. Ooh, a juicer. What are the odds that the one Pikmin that stayed behind was the yellow? Wait, now I got 20 following me. Where'd the extra one come from? Oh well. Hold on. Oh, if it works, it works. Ah, shoot. Oh, there goes one of those Pikmin. Oh no, that's a lot of Pikmin. Well, that was some nonsense right there. Why are you going that way? Okay, you know what? I'll take it. You are even more of a disappointment than Louise, if I'm being perfectly honest. Anyway. Alright, Pikmin, killed them all, let God sort them out. I don't think I've actually seen whatever's been dropping from the ceiling very well. Are those like water droplets? I was about to say that there's a treasure somewhere on this floor. And then I'm like, oh wait, they're carrying it off. Sounds the crushed Pikmin. Noted. I'll try to avoid those. The merciless extractor. Oh, I like how I actually tried buying one of those things, to try and get some lemon juice. Like, I bought a lemon and a juicer. And it did not go well. Like, it was like a really cheap plastic thing, and it just kind of like crumbled in my hands. And all it kind of did was like pulp the lemon, it didn't actually juice it. So the next time I was out, I just like bought a carton of lemon juice for like half the price of the actual lemon. I forgot to turn my Pikmin into white Pikmin. Whoopsie. Well, that's kind of ethereal looking. It probably wants to kill us. Ow, my bones. But I lived. Looks like that one sucks. And it looks like one of my white ones got distracted and got eaten. Presumably the Pikmins that got eaten are going to suffocate in there. Or get freed. That also works, I guess. Right, I might have forgotten to restock on white Pikmin in the last floor. But hopefully this time I don't forget to turn some purple. Ooh, a brand. Get that later. That does look like a rock-destroying Pikmin. It's a soap. How'd you beat that? That's a big one. And I'm kind of scared to go down into the pool. Because I think something's gonna pop out and attack me if I do. Alright, one thing at a time. Let's grab these, let's break this down. You know, as I like to say, Random Chance and I have a really weird relationship. Like, every time I say something, there's like a 50-50 chance that I'm speaking it into existence. I just had a thought, wouldn't it be kind of fun if, like, at the end of the game, like, all the various treasures that I put together actually got, like, Rube Goldberg together into, like, a final boss? Mild soap. Sud generator. I'm actually kind of curious what the dictionary for that one looks like. And if perhaps Olimar will be like, oh, I need to find some way to make Louis use this. Alright, which ones of you are least valuable? You all, come here. Are you ready to become purple? I sure hope the answer was yes. I was gonna say, I don't think I actually needed to bring them with me. But then I remember that I actually want to kill this thing, so actually I did. I actually appreciate how one-sided that one was. And it seems my Pikmin want to be in the pool, so they can just kind of be there. Except for this one red. Which one of these least valuable? Spoken like a true capitalist. Yeah. There's just something about this game where, like, I mercilessly exploit these creatures for my own gain that makes me feel like a capitalist. I couldn't say what. Some of you may die, but at least I'm making money. Which is probably being taken away from me by my boss, so it's fair. Legit, once when I got into an argument with the worst boss I've ever had, in particular because I asked for a raise that he had promised me when I interviewed to work there. He got mad at me. Arguing that he had to pay rent on the building that he was operating out of, and I was just like, do you think I don't have to pay rent on the building that I live in? Also, this thing is just like one-sidedly eating my guys, and that purple just drowned. Get back here. Right, kill it, kill it. There we go. It ate you, now you ate it. That's the cycle of life. You know, basically, he was like calling me greedy because I asked for what we had agreed on. And he was like, but if I give you what we agreed on, then Maya will make less money, and how's that fair? That was actually his logic. Oh, we don't need that. I see those eggs and I feel like Batman spotting a gun. Like, no, we do not need this. That's gross and beneath us. I like how the non-blue Pikmin, like, can't even parse holding their breaths. Like, the blue ones can breathe underwater, that's fine, but the other ones can't, like, hold their breath and ford a puddle like this. As they're so helpfully demonstrating, get out of the water. My god, I didn't even call you, what are you doing? Oh, it's the other half of that oyster. The scrumptious shell. Seems like there's at least one more treasure in here, though. Alright, this part. I kind of forgot that this was here. That thing is concerningly large. I'm just gonna keep throwing Pikmin at this and seeing what happens, and hopefully it works out. I'm not sure if this counts as, like, a boss, or as, like, a particularly beefy trash mob, but it dropped something that I want and nothing died, so I'm happy. Mirrored stage. I feel like that's a good way to set your performers on fire. And, like, not critically. I don't think I trust this hole. I say after getting everybody into it. R.I.P. Pikmin. Luckily, we still have enough to claim this thing. Alright, while those guys are doing that, can you get this thing out of the water without dying? The Vorpal Platter. You know what? I see where they're coming from with that one. In D&D, and preceding that from Jabberwock, a Vorpal weapon is a weapon that easily beheads things. So they're like really good at cutting things. And those things have sharp edges. Alright, my radar's not going off for anything else in this, on this floor. I don't believe there was a flower here to make use of. So I will proceed. After this, I might have to spend, like, a day farming Pikmin, who knows? Luckily, unlike Pikmin 1, I can spare a day to do that. Come on, figure it out. I'd say that they're trying, but they really aren't. Alright. Oh, flowers. And... some kind of rainbow flower? I'm not sure if this is gonna, like, change the color of my Pikmin or give them, like, rainbow powers. It might also be a predator disguised as a flower. Or maybe it's a duplicator. Works for me. I wonder now, if I had thrown in like a white or a purple Pikmin, or if I'd thrown in a Pikmin that like didn't line up with the color, would the same thing have happened? I suppose I can find out. Okay, red ones. I'm gonna throw this in when it's, let's say yellow. Okay, so it just spits out a bunch of whatever the flower's color is. Do I recall that I can use the D-pad to pick a color when throwing? Yes. I haven't... Yes, I've actually done that already. Okay, luckily this water isn't enough to drown the Pikmin. If I can get these Pikmin to run through to the other side of the pipe, they can get that leaf that I saw. Just need to figure out how to get them here. Oh wait, couldn't I just throw a Pikmin up instead of throwing up and then going around? Hold on. I feel like I'm adding a step that doesn't need to be here. Also, yes, I was dismissing them and then picking the color that I wanted because sometimes it's just a pain if they're all there. Where was it? There it is. Grab that for me, please, and thank you. Arboreal frippery. I am kind of curious what's in that in-between bit now. In the American version, they changed it to a red Japanese maple leaf. Nice. As a Canadian, I like maple leaves. We actually put a maple leaf on our flag. I feel like we're back at the first floor again. Oh, I don't want purples. Why are you intermingling? I expressly forbade this. That's a problem. Or not, it's just a vacuum thing, never mind. Granted, I could conceivably throw my red Pikmin into the water. Kind of like that. I demand you stop. Alright, be right back. Alright, Blues, this is a job for you. This is the one that spits fire, I think. This has got the red nose. Now I'm just imagining Rudolph was a fire-breathing reindeer. To maintain lore consistency with Pikmin 2. It is kind of almost Christmas. I'm missing 2 Pikmin. Where did they end up? Probably blown somewhere by the vacuum thing. Ooh, purple flower. I'll keep that in mind for later. Oh, one of my Pikmin died. Rip. Oh, did it also blast the flowers off their head? That's very rude. It's actually so rude, what the heck? Imagine getting punched so hard that you, like, forget life skills. That's apparently what these things do to Pikmin. Looks like some kind of rustic cookpot. Broken Food Master. I would say that that one was just standing still and minding its own business, but none of them are innocent. You know you suck at water. Why did you get in the water? I didn't tell you to go there. There's still a treasure somewhere on this floor. Oh, those are the ones that like to squish my Pikmin. Gotta be careful about those. Back here, you. That's not yours, that's mine. I stole it fair and square. I like how the camera cuts away just as a bunch of Pikmin die. The Pondering Emblem. Wait, did none of my Pikmin actually die from that? Huh. Alright, we take those. Awesome. Cutscene saved me? No, I was just powerful from the beginning. I mean, consider, maybe I'm just good at this game. Maybe I didn't need luck. Oh, thank you for the headpats. I appreciate them. Looks like there's probably something buried here. That or it's up in this vent-looking thing. Looks like it's in this vent-looking thing. I should probably throw blues up there. Do we even have enough blues for this? I don't think I do, which is unfortunate. Well, I suppose I'll just have to come back later with a bunch of blues. I've experienced water hazards before. Yeah, I don't mind doing a second sweep. The first time through, the purpose is to kill everything, including hopefully Louis. Unfortunately, he's stinky. I like how for this floor they're just like, if you want to, you can just leave. Also, I noticed a while back that the Pikmin's shadows are little squares, and now that's bothering me. Oh, that's a spider. The darkness won't save you from me. Ooh, dentures. Or perhaps just dentures. Why are you going that way? Do not go that way. That is not the way to go to be safe. My goodness. Okay, we'll come back later. But for optimizing, it really isn't. Like, Olimar and Louis have technically octagonal, but like circular shadows. Like, you could just do the same thing for the Pikmin, just smaller. Alright, my fighters can... Alright. It's an explosive thing. Get off of it, get off of it, get off of it, get away from it, get away from it! Okay, what I'm gonna be doing in response to that one is... resetting the console. Like, I didn't want my purples blown up. I told them to leave. Ah, well, luckily this is what save files are for. Perhaps next time I will simply kill that thing first, before it can explode. That said, speaking of doing things first, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, what? Please take this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. I will notice that here on this pause screen, we can see that there are no free Pikmin, and I'm just wondering whether or not that's a commentary on the value of their labor or on their social status. As their overlord, I know which one I'm choosing. What are you doing here? Hello? I mean, fine, you've chosen death, but like... Okay, that's squished a few. I was hoping it would die and not come down, but unfortunately it didn't do that. But it only killed one valuable one, so whatever. Oh hey, a flower! I can make more valuable ones! I don't know what you're trying to do, but take Chloe instead. Or die. Either one serves my needs. Serves my will. You can't hide from me, spider. Oh, that's poison. Take that brand name object away from me. I spy another spider. That's why they call them spiders. The abstract masterpiece. Oh, that's the one that explodes. Get out of there. There we go, problem solved. As somebody who has to model teeth soon, I'm actually kind of interested in this one. The behemoth jaw. This actually, I think, looks like the upper part of a jaw, rather than the lower part. Because the foremost teeth are too prominent for the lower half of a jaw. Oh, Deferweasel, welcome. Thank you for following me the other day. I appreciate it. I am currently role-playing an evil capitalist. Because you better believe none of these Pikmin are getting paid. Let's see, what's over this way? Oh, so many dead Pikmin. Oh, that's rough. Well, some of them may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Ooh, rubber ducky. I've only got 2 blue Pikmin left alive. I probably can't get that with 2 Pikmin. Or, wait, hold on. I've got 8 blue Pikmin. Maybe a 9th there on this one? No, that one's white. I suspect 8's not gonna be enough for the duck. Well, I was gonna have to come back extra with platers anyway for that one that was in the other floor. Oh, it's actually exactly enough. This is why you never give up. Let's go. Right, you all take this. Now that it's on dry land, you all take this. Sometimes things just go your way. Rubber ugly, that's so mean. I don't think I've ever actually had a rubber duck. I think the closest thing to a rubber duck that I ever had was a Kabuto, the Pokemon. From like a McDonald's Happy Meal when I was like 5. It was like made of rubber and floated in water. Which in hindsight was probably cooler. I remember being a kid and like having the like book Pokédex, so you could like look at all the different Pokemon with like their pictures and such. And I remember looking at like Kabuto and Kabutops, and then like Ammonite and Amistar, and I was like, who would ever pick Ammonite? This is a game where we make monsters fight each other, and one of them has swords for arms. The other one has a beak. It's like, don't get me wrong, like, beaks are cool, but like... swords for arms? Why are you catching strays here? You bully me, you don't get to complain. Like, I get that, like, Ammonite is somebody's favorite. Just, that was my mentality at the time. Like, this is obviously better because it has swords. Right, my Pikmin have all grown up. Yeah, if memory serves, Bulbasaur is actually, like, by a mile the most powerful starter in Generation 1. Like, Charizard is, like, the iconic one, but, like... in terms of, like, actually getting through the game, Bulbasaur just, like, rocks the entire thing. Though, fun fact, when I was that age, I actually had Pokemon Yellow, the Pikachu edition. So I didn't get Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur. I got Pikachu. The first boss in Pokemon Yellow Pikachu Edition is Brock, who runs a team that's entirely immune to electric attacks. I was stuck on Brock for a very long time. Oh, my bones. I just ate my Pikmin through walls. That's not okay. Do you switch to get other Pokemon? Actually, no, because what actually happened was I got my Pikachu to level 24 and beat Brock's Geodude and Onix with Quick Attack. And only Quick Attack. Correct, you could not evolve the Pikachu in yellow. It would pop up and be angry at you if you tried. Okay, I've got an idea. Yeah, what I did on replays when I was like a bit smarter was I would get a Mankey and teach it low kick. But as a child, I brute forced it with Pikachu. Alright, so my plan is I will let this thing eat Louie while Olimar kills it. Okay, it's currently getting rotated, which means it's not killing anything. But it's also not taking any damage, which means nothing's getting killed. Oh, thank you for the rotation. Now, from my perspective, this thing is standing still. I kind of don't want to switch characters because I'm afraid that the moment I stop rotating it, it's going to kill like half my Pikmin. Would like a reminder of the hint the ship gave me? It did say that I was going to need to work together with Louie. And like that was the plan with having it having this thing eat Louie. So it seems like it aggroes onto whoever's like active. But then like in the meantime the Pikmin oh hi. I feel like in the meantime, the Pikmin don't do anything. Oh, wait, there's some damage. Okay, I've got an idea. The P in RIP stands for Pikmin. I'm missing 5 of them. Where'd they go? Over there? They're probably dead. Or surviving through sheer audacity, one or the other. Alright, Louie and Purples come with me. Yes, well, I'll have Louie keep this thing over here, because it can't get close enough to stab him. I think. Right, look over here, look over here, look over here. And I saw that it took damage when I hit it with a purple, so I'll hit it with a purple. We did it. We finally found a use for Louie. Unironically his live bait. Processing. How odd. The gooey creature dissolved, leaving this curious item behind. It appears to be coated in slime. Are you sure you want to collect this? Absolutely sure. You'll toss just about anything in my hold. It'd be nice if you cleaned occasionally. Oh, yeah, GG. That went better than I thought it would, not gonna lie. I'm pretty sure bosses respawn, so breaking that thing to get out of here on the second pass-through might be annoying. Actually, I can just beat it with Louie again. Never mind. The amplified amplifier. This shape is well suited for the emission and amplification of sound waves. A moment, please. I shall use this as the final part of my new sound equipment. The new Mega Tweeter is done. I can tell that this game is old, because now it's called, like, the Mega Xer, or whatever. Captain Olimar, this device has increased the acoustic range of your whistle. Well, I do like more power in all of its forms. Alright, Pikmin, speaking of more power, you can have this. Let's dedicate that nectar to the Pikmin who died. You know, kind of an obscenely profitable cave, actually. I only lost 39 Pikmin. And like, I'm still technically not done looting it. That said, I might need to farm some more. I need blues in particular. Throws me off a little bit that the interface for whites and purples, specifically, is different than the ones for the others. Like, I get that they don't have their own onions, it's just, it throws me off a bit. Alright, Yue, time to propagate the species. What do we even eat? Might actually be smarter to end the day early, go back to the first area. Because there's like a ton of safe food there. I think I'll just do that. It feels a bit weird to end a day when it technically just started. Like, I did get a lot done, so... Look on the bright side, little blues. Because so many of your family members died, now you will have all the room you can ask for. Hello, I'm still on the lam from debt collectors. For the time being, I've decided to live under the bridge, but if they catch me, I don't know what they'll do to me. The thing that gets me just a little is like, technically he's still making payments, so... Like, why are they mad at him? Like, if you're a debt collector, you don't make money by actually collecting your debts. Oh, I actually had a bunch extra. For some reason, I thought that those 8 Pikmin were the only ones I had. Oh well, this is fine. I'll farm some more blues anyway. Yeah, it's snowing, but this hole still hasn't been filled in. Looks at Louis suspiciously. What have you been doing at night? Actually, maybe that's just where I've been dropping him. And he has to sleep there every night. Also, didn't the like the menu say that there were like 4 treasures still on the surface here, technically? In hindsight, I should probably go look for those. And since I want to fight that thing up there, I'll bring some purples. Let's try and find, wherever those treasures might be. Conveniently, I brought a bunch of blues here. Why are you hanging out with me? We're not friends. Get in there. Emergence Cave. No commentary on that one. Let's put these ones away. It'd be kind of cool if I could, like, order Louie to come to my location. Like, have him grab, like, all the blue Pikmin and then, like, go to where Olimar is. I believe I was told that was a thing in Pikmin 3. It's possible with your mod? Nice. Your mod is in the mod you used? I presumed, but for a second I got excited. Like, oh, modding a console game, that's not easy. Technically, you don't have to be super good at programming to be a modder in general. It depends on, like, the quality and variety of the tools available to you. Oh, that was a one-way ledge. Whoops. Like, for kind of an extreme example, like, look at Bethesda games where they just, like, make an SDK available to you. Like, anybody basically could go in and, like, make a very rudimentary mod. I know this because I made a very rudimentary mod for Oblivion when I was 14. Like, it was really overpowered. It's like, I made a pink katana that did, like, 999 damage, but, like... Like, based on what tools are available to you, you can probably do more than you think you can. Yeah, I made a pink katana that did, like, the highest value that I could put into the actual, like, damage field in damage. And then I made 2 rings, one that gave me 100% spell reflection, and one that gave me 100% chameleon. Which, if you've not played Oblivion, chameleon's like invisibility, except a million times better. Because invisibility makes it so that enemies can't detect you, but the moment you take any action, the effect breaks. But chameleon doesn't break, but instead it's only a percentile. So like if you've got like chameleon 20, like the range for which enemies can detect you is reduced by 20%, and like they're 20% less likely to notice if you make a sound. But with a chameleon 100%, it breaks their AI, and they cannot respond to anything that you do. Because you've got a 100% chance to be like ignored no matter what you do. And because it was in a chameleon and not invisibility, the effect never wore off, so... It was basically a ring that just, like, turned off the game's AI. Which was very cheaty, but it didn't feel like cheating, because I made the mod. My standards are a bit higher these days, but... That's the sort of thing that I did when I was little. That looks like it's got something in it. I probably want to throw a red Pikmin across these stones to get at it. I've only got a bit less than half the day left. I wonder if I've got time for that. That guy with that bitter spray note dance took you so many tries. Luckily, I am willing to make sacrifices. And by I mean my Pikmin. Bitter spray's the purple one, right? Does that just kill it? Did I not use it yet? I think I used it once, but I didn't see what it did because my Pikmin just killed whatever I used it on immediately. I'm asking what it does? Sure. Thank you for clarifying before just telling me. I did accomplish my goal of farming up a bunch of blues though, so that's nice. Petrifies enemies for a few seconds if they die while petrified, there's no corpse. Interesting. Would also extinguish the fire. That's interesting. Right, I think I'll start a new day. I'll go in with red Pikmin instead of blue Pikmin. I don't really care if my boss gets his legs broken. Some wild animals are nesting under the bridge now. They think I'm their pal or something. My stylish suits are covered in hair. I'm pitiful, but at least they're warm. Oh, thank you for the hydration. Oh, thank you for the head tats. I appreciate them. Okay, it says above ground 2. Over here was above ground 4. There's also 2 caves here, apparently, that I just haven't found. I'm kind of like trying to scan the horizon during the loading in sequence. Right, come along, my army. I'm going to be throwing you across a river, which I know that you're very excited for. Taking the kids on an adventure. You're not wrong. That's a bridge that I can knock down. Which I might have to do with blues, actually. Okay, hold that thought. Oh, and my radar is going crazy here, so there's probably something buried in the snow that I need to wipe for. Alright, Reds, you get a slight break. If I could make you do the job, I would, but I can't, so... Also, yeah, for me, it wasn't my grandparents, but my parents. Whenever I complained about the trip to school, they'd be like, when I had to go to school, I had to walk uphill in the snow both ways. Every single time. Uphill both ways, they weren't serious. They were essentially saying, we're not going to take you seriously. Alright, dig it up, little ones. Whatever it is. That looks kind of like an artichoke. Right, blues, come along. Or like an artichoke heart, I think they're called. Either way, it's getting eaten. Spiny alien trait. What? Nobody said he could eat yet. Stop crying. There we go. Luckily, we can extinguish fire with a sense of urgency and a whistle. I would have used reds, but they can't get over here until this bridge is built, and... I don't think I could build that bridge until that thing was dead, so... Okay, so the thing inside of that, like, burning thing is probably the other, surface treasure. And then there's still the 2 caves to find. So, let's try this again with, the bridge actually built this time. I should probably bring some blue Pikmin to act like lifeguards, come to think of it. But at this point I'm committed to the mass of reds, so... You know, I can do 2 birds with 1 stone. As if the reds die, I can use that to motivate the blues. Like, this could have been avoided if you'd worked harder. This is fine. I seem to be missing 4. I'll get over here. let's oh, they're dead. But some of them made it. I was trying to throw them, but then they started drowning, and I couldn't throw them. I wonder if there's like a better way to do this. Got an idea, actually. I'll throw them as far as I can as Olivar, and then as Louie, I'll tell them to not drown. Oh, Louie. Louie. Huh. That actually worked better than I thought it would, not gonna lie. It actually worked way better than I thought it would, not gonna lie. Oh, 20% failure. 20% loss, that's fine though. Kill. But now how will they get it back? Huh. Okay, I got an idea. I said do the exact same thing but backwards. Yeah, you two made your choice, you can live with it. Pardon me. Here, you can have these. I hope I have time to get back with the blues. It'd be kind of funny if I had to, kill it a second time. Because getting there took so long. Also, thank you for the head pats. It's fine. A bunch of them died, but then we made more. So it's okay. So factoring these in, we really only lost 10. Well, 12, counting the 2 that are still on that rock. Just needs me to bring those 2 back. Yep, if I bring them into my squad and then end the day, they'll be safe. I really don't think I'm gonna have time for this. That's okay. was a learning moment if I didn't pull it off. That's all. That said, I'm still gonna try. How did, like, all of you get stuck? In a way that made you think that I didn't want you to keep following me, no less. Alright, have fun, you two. There you go. Just survive. That's all it takes. Do we have time? I kind of feel like we don't. Which is ironic because we're carrying a clock. I wonder if this thing will, like, extend my day timer if I actually do collect it. Given that a few of them have actually, like, had utility. Come on, go fast, go in a straight line. Don't do a laugh of all the onions, just go in a straight line to the rocket. We did it. Awesome. The temporal mechanism, which also puts us above 70%. Right, you aren't going to make it, but if you're in my squad, you'll survive at least. Technically, that was fewer casualties than I expected, because that one red actually survived. All in all, that went surprisingly well. A little sad that the clock didn't, like, unlock anything. Well, the animals that adopted me are actually rather cute once you get used to them. Once we get the debt paid off, I might build a refuge for them. What do you think? I think that's the first altruistic thing I've ever heard you say. Oh no, it's not 4 treasures left, it's 4 treasures found so far. I think. There's still 2 caves left to find. I will go looking for those. Well, probably also eating the yellows because they need some extra. Where might those caves be? I should actually probably bring whites with me so that they can dig up hidden stuff. Come to think of it. I'll leave those Pikmin in the ground to potentially mature. Come along, white Pikmin. Actually, there's a bunch of nectar up that hill, so... I can just transform all my currently active Pikmin. That's not the hill that I'm thinking of. Luckily, I have a map to check such things, because I don't have a map in my head. That's fine, though. I don't need one. Up here, have some nectar. This world kind of reminds me of the secret level in Super Mario World, where you just go in and like it's an extra life and every power-up in the game. And you can just kind of like kit yourself out however you want. I just had a thought. What if I bring a white Pikmin to Louie's hole? Will it take something up there, I wonder? Yes, top secret area. That's actually what it's called. I feel like I feel like as a designer, I probably would have put something there. Like, hold on a second, Louie hit something. And then like have like a lore blurb about how like it would be valuable enough to pay off the debt all in one go if only it hadn't been dented by an impact with something. Like a cracked vase, let's say. Kinda got my eyes on the radar at this point. It pinged very briefly for a second there, so I'm probably walking away from anything interesting. RIP yellow. No, stop it! Get away from that. Kill that thing. Is it just me, or did that thing make a sound effect exactly like the heavy from TF2 eating a sandwich? RIP that one Pikmin in particular. Here's the thing that, blasts the flowers off them. Speed it up, little one, speed it up, please. Excellent. This looks bridge-shaped. Doesn't this game predate TF2? I'm not sure. It almost certainly wouldn't be like the actual same sound effect. But to me, it kind of sounded like it. There is a cave here. Yet another cave discovered. Venturing to the farthest reaches has proven rewarding. You may be tired of walking, but just one last sleep remains. Now go get that treasure. I will come back with a full contingent of Pikmin. And I presume that palette swap rock spitting thing up there has the other treasure that I'd be after. Or perhaps in this thing that's like poisonous. The expanded whistle range is actually really useful for healing Pikmin when they get afflicted by stuff like that. Alright, you two, have at it. You all have at that. And the remainders, help me fight this thing, I guess. Oh, that's a crown, I want that. Oh, RIP those Pikmin. Yeah, by all means, keep shooting rocks this way. Water pop that way. That probably won't affect anything I care about. I will admit I sweated for a second there. I was like, am I actually gonna get my whites sniped like that? It would have been very funny if it had happened, not gonna lie. I would have had to respect the outcome. This would be so much easier if I just, like, came back with more Pikmin. Like, in terms of, like, everything that I'm currently trying to accomplish. Also, Olimar Chop, I don't know if I can actually... Actually, yeah, I totally could. There we go, problem solved, let's go. Can we eat this? We need exactly one more Pikmin. Are there any stragglers? Yes, there is. There's exactly one straggler. That said, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. I need to take about 5 minutes. I return. You go help them with the body. I'll have to come back for the crown later. Where's the rest of my Pikmin? At the onion. Okay. I probably don't have enough time to do any carrying back to the ship today. Beyond what I've already set in motion, I should say. But maybe I can get some more white Pikmin and break down that barrier. I have no more white Pikmin. At least not in the rocket. Contacted about sprouts? Mm-hmm. After being in flower for too long to go back to being in leaf? Oh, so I can't just, like, leave them there and then forget about it? There. Pardon me. Right, break it down, break it down. You have until the sun sets to destroy it. Louis, you should go in there. Sadly, I think his atmosphere suit protects him from poison. We're just kind of hanging out. But like in a way where I'm not actually like hanging out with Louis. Or like I'm hanging out and he's like here. Even though I don't want him to be here. Seems like the other Pikmin made it back to base, so they're safe. Oh wait, no, destroy those things. Alright, just in time. And there's the other cave. Interesting. My metal detectors are reacting violently. I can only conclude that there may be some sort of machine below, but that seems illogical. Skip these cutscenes. Also, yes, I will spend some time reading the lore on things now. Mostly because I want to see if they call Louis stinky. When you're down, you find out who your true friends are, and I think I finally have. Maybe I'll just fire you two in Grace and hire these nice animals. Maybe I'll stop sending money to you. Frontier Cavern and Subterranean Complex. Okay, over here we've got... There are a number of things. Including a duck and the head of a duck as two separate things. Where the entire body of the duck only doubles its weight compared to the head and only adds 10 value. I found a weird item today. Wetting the surface produces an endless world of bubbles. It's amusing, but it will take further investigation to determine its practical use. It might take a young and playful mind to unlock its secrets. When I return home, I'll show it to my kids. These are the same thing, but they're called two different things and have different weights and different values. Interesting. This cryptic item exhibits an unbelievable quantity of stored dormant energy. The civilization that created this must have advanced tremendously when it discovered this powerful new energy source. If I were to take this technology back home, how would it affect the future of Hokotind? AA and A? Do you mean AAA? This one's a D. And this one's a C, so they are different actually. Well, there's no such thing as an A battery is the thing. As far as I'm aware. Is there an A-cell battery? Batteries and vitamins are both kind of weird like that. It's like batteries, you skip A and then you go AA, and then you have AAA. Then there's like B, and then there's C, and then there's D. Or are there B batteries? I don't think there are. And now that I've said B batteries out loud, I think I figured out why. You'd be like trying to buy some and the cashier would think that you were stuttering. I'd like to buy some batteries, please. Oh sure, what kind? Batteries. Yes, but what kind? batteries. Yes, but what kind? And then when they were naming vitamins, it was like, okay, vitamin A, vitamin B, hold on, we're going too fast, vitamin B2. Thank you for the head pats. Looks like no Pikmin in the ground. Apparently a bunch of different people discovered vitamins before they could get approved / share their info, so about 50 different vitamin Bs were discovered concurrently. That's interesting. I did not know that. I legitimately feel like I'm escorting children because I'm constantly stopping to let the slowest ones catch up. I also like how this of all days is when it decided to respawn all the enemies. Right. Get the crown for me. Enemies respawn 3 days after killing them, you think? That sounds reasonable. I should probably kill that thing over there before it kills everything trying to escort the crown. First try? What? Did I do something silly without noticing again? Did one of my purples die there? No, it didn't. Okay, cool. I say that the important thing is that they're all alive, but in reality, the important thing is that my insurance premiums don't go up. Just kidding, my workers aren't insured. It really does look like a Princess Peach crown. Unfortunately, no insurance fraud. Like, if the insurance paid out to me and not to their families, I'd actually get it. It is a Princess Peach crown? Awesome. The unspeakable wonder. I like how 3 of these are spherical and then this one's a square. Yeah, in like 20 years, this thing is gonna blow up the internet and it's gonna be awesome. I'm missing 3. Where'd they go? They're up there. Alright. I do have a bunch of ones with leaves, so I'll go feed them some nectar. This isn't where the nectar is. I'm slowly beginning to learn the layout of the first level. Let's go. I like these eggs because they don't have, like, gross maggots in them. Alright, anybody who didn't eat when they had the chance will not be fed. I'm gonna clear at least one cave, maybe both today. We'll see. Depends on how long it takes. And how many of my Pikmin die. Oh, whoops, hold on. Exploration kit. There's actually a bunch that I can see kind of preemptively. There's 6 upgrades left to get. That's kind of cool. I actually hadn't looked at that part of the menu before. Also, my radar is still going off, so there's still an above-ground treasure, at least one. I legitimately thought that that crown would have been the last one. Alright, since we're closer to this one, let's go to this one. Frontier Cavern. The 4th season of Cavern. That's a Digimon joke. Oh, it's stinky. Well, one of my Pokemon, one of my Pikmin just poisoned itself to death. Oh, it's like a fluffy dandelion. Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Oh, they're all poisoned. That's not good. Stop dying. Stop being poisoned. You just suggested waiting? Eh, it's fine. Worst case scenario, all my Pikmin die. And then I simply have to get new ones. Trying to manage this is a bit difficult, though. So if I look away for too long, they might get parted on and die. We are in the 1st floor, and I've already lost 10% of my forces. This is fine, though. I also still need to go back to that one shower one and get that one treasure that was underwater. I like how I can tell when it's been unearthed because, like, all of a sudden, all the— oh no. That was mean. Because all of a sudden, all the Pikmin jump into action. That's shiny, I like it. The Essence of Rage. That's a very fantasy RPG name. Like when socketed into your gear, this gemstone causes you to lose, 20% of your life, but gain a 20% strength bonus when you take damage. 30-second cooldown. Drinking fruit tea? Nice. I still haven't actually tried mine. It's literally been sitting there, like, in tea bags for over a couple of years at this point. The essential furnishing. Oh, is that why you were going to tell me to wait until December? It's just like, oh look, a Christmas ornament. Oh well. It's never too early for Christmas. Unless Halloween hasn't happened yet, in which case it is actually too early for Christmas. Couple of years, yeah, no, like I got it a while ago, and then I just like never actually used it. Fun fact, I've actually still got one package of instant ramen that I bought when I moved into this apartment. Like, it was part of like a bigger, like, thing of, like, packs of instant ramen. And over the years I've eaten most of them, but there's one left. And I'm saving it for my hour of need. Also, speaking of instant ramen, I found out earlier that instant ramen can have lactose in it. And I was like, is nothing sacred? Like, it doesn't inherently have lactose in it, but like, depending on if there's cross-contamination with the equipment and like whatever seasoning mix they end up going with, it might have lactose in it. And my stomach has been acting up a lot recently in regards to lactose, so I've kind of been more diligent about looking for those things. And it's in a surprising number of things that I never would have guessed had lactose in it. Like chicken nuggets. Oh, this really is the Santa Cave, wow. Oh, that... I don't like that number of deaths. We're just gonna hit the reset button on that one. Christmas lights, you're not wrong. Let's try this again. I like how the trees are different every time you go through the title screen. That or they're not, and I'm hallucinating. Like that one was kind of like fall colors. Oh no, you don't. Yeah, I was really hoping that would stun them. We're just gonna hit reset again. I'm not trying to make a habit of this, I just don't want to lose all of my purples. I kind of need those. I don't like cheating, but I will if I have to. Then again, is save scumming cheating, or is that just, like, a legitimate strategy? Does resetting the console count as hardware manipulation? I remember a while ago, I was looking at the speedrun.com, like, rules for Link to the Past randomizer. Like, what restrictions you had to, like, abide by to actually qualify to go up on that leaderboard. And one of them was you weren't allowed to save and quit the game. If doing so would actually, like, move your character somewhere to get there faster. Wait, where's the stun? You're supposed to get stunned. Well, I'm not gonna reset a third time just because two guys died. Yes, hit the back? Oh, I thought it was just if a purple hit it, it was screwed. Okay. I thought that was just an inherent property of being purple. Learning moment. 7337, if only I had 6,000 less. At this point, I just want to see how far this rock can go. It has some momentum on it. Alright, yeah, we're just gonna... Alright. I promise I'm not making a habit of this. I'd like to know a fun fact about the can of worms. Let me guess. If I throw a Pikmin at them while they're sucking, it'll, like, kill it instantly. No? Sure then. I also find it kind of interesting that, like, I spawn into a slightly different version of the cave every time I reset. Like, oh, it is procedurally generated. That's kind of interesting. This game has friendly fire? Interesting. So I could, like, bait them into killing their friends. I do like it when I have my enemies kill each other off. And then I swoop in and loot everything. While I was out shopping the other day, icon of progress. While I was out shopping the other day, I saw an old man. Like stark white hair, big beard. And I was so very tempted to be like, "Hi, Santa." But I'm not young enough to get away with that anymore. Like, it would not have been appropriate. Louis, chop. Okay, this is fine. RIP that one purple. Like, I would like to believe that, like, the average old guy with, like, a stark white beard and, like, head of hair would be delighted to be mistaken for Santa Claus. Just probably not by, like, a full-grown adult. Now I'm trying to think if there's, like, anybody that I could ever be mistaken for, where I could, like, lean into the bit and, like, make a child stay. And nothing comes to mind. A real fox? I mean, getting mistaken for myself doesn't count. That just means that they're right. Oh, get wrecked. That worked really well. Wasn't even what I was going for, technically. Go fast. Make me happy. Like how right as I say that, that one just, like, gives up. Like, you know what? I'm tired. I don't want to carry the dead bodies anymore. Now, this very much is like a Christmas-themed cave. I kind of wonder if there's, like, a reason for that. The Choya receptacle. I believe I'm exactly $2 away from being 75% of the way through my debt. And by my debt, I mean my boss's debt. And only one Pikmin died. Let's go. Not counting the one that died on the previous floor. And by the one, I mean, like, the 10. But who's counting? I'm actually not, I'm just like doing the math on the fly, looking at how many people are alive, and oh no. I didn't even have time to get my bearings, this guy just walked up and started eating. And then a bunch of them got electrocuted. Ooh, a bell. The danger chime. It'd be kinda cool if that was like an upgrade, and I could like go back to my ship and ring it and would like call all the Pikmin back. I'd like a bell from Minecraft, kind of think of it. Ooh, flower. I will try to remember that that's there. Looks like there's something here. As well as some nectar. Fancy looking ring. Actually, that one's probably plastic. Oh no. Oi, oi. What are you doing here? The heck is this thing? It's like a Bulborb Pikmin? The confused Bulborb has fallen in with the Pikmin. They appear to coexist peacefully. Strange, this Bulborb has a leaf spreading from its spine, much like the leaf on a Pikmin's head. What? Like, actually, what? The Gemster husband. Do I just keep the Bulborbs now? What? I have legitimately never seen these things mentioned anywhere. Oh, RIP that one. Like, I've never seen them in Smash Brothers, I've never seen them in fan art, I've never seen them in, like, random discussions online. That is just entirely foreign to me. I wonder if they have any, like, particular powers, or if they're just sort of, like, there. It's genuinely so interesting, actually. One of those popular things in the fandom. I've legitimately never heard anything about them before. That's actually really interesting. Oh, you know, I need everything? Interesting. My phones. I like how there's a geyser so you can just, like, leave with your Bulborb Pikmin, I guess. Like, you know what? I've seen enough. I've seen some stuff. The fleeting art form. I like that. I think some of my Pikmin might have died in the fire there. Lemon bread bugs. I think I saw a bug in Pikmin 1. I just didn't have anything to do with it. No, I didn't. I didn't have anything to do with it. Like, I could have killed it and taken it back to my ship, but I didn't interact with it. I like how the bulb orbs are just like, yeah, this is life now. I should have thrown some Pikmin into the flower. Oh well. This is fine. Oh, they got me. They'll be genuinely useless. Throw some bulb into the bar. Doesn't seem like a very fair trade if the bulbmen are actually good. Granted, purples in particular are really good. Oh no. Don't let it do its app thing. I feel like that was very close to being, like, a lot of good Pikmin. We'll just kill everything in the room and then figure things out later. Now I'm wondering if there's ever such a thing as, like, a secret area that I need to, like, deliberately get kidnapped by one of those bugs to access. Oh, hey, a treasure. Oh, it's like a marble. The Omniscient Spear. I was not allowed to have marbles as a child, unfortunately. My parents were afraid that I would leave them on the stairs. I never got to experience the joy of owning small glass spheres. I presume that they're glass. I know that like marbles were like a big thing in like cartoons when I was growing up. And then like for all the marbles is like a saying, even today. You had middle marbles with magnetic sticks to put them together. That sounds awesome. Oh, release me. Release me immediately. Like that, yes. We can keep Louie. How dare you return him to me? You know what? I might have actually seen the Bulbor Pikmin, but like not parsed that they were Bulbor Pikmin. I might have just thought like, oh yes, those are the enemies from Pikmin. Oh, RIP those purples. Innocence lost. Can't imagine not being allowed to have marbles. I mean, I wasn't allowed to have a lot of things growing up. Oh, you played marbles for Auntie? That makes sense. Fun fact, Magic the Gathering, like the card game, was originally designed either inherently or with a variant rule to let you play for Auntie. Kind of like how in Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City, like, when they beat one of their opponents, they could take one of their cards. And by itself, that's not too interesting, but the fun thing is that there were actually cards that mechanically interacted with Auntie. Like, there was one card that, like, you and your opponent, like, both drew a card from your deck and then added those cards, like, to the Auntie. It's like you could, like, force your opponent, quote-unquote, to, like, add a card to what they would lose if they lost. So there was a deck that just, like, copied the effect of that card over and over to make your opponent give you all of their cards if they lost. Not surprising that they stopped doing that mechanic entirely. I can't imagine the game would stay very popular if you had to literally rebuy the whole deck. I feel like that's the sort of thing that gets done to you once and then you're like, haha, very funny. I'm not actually gonna give you my cards. Okay, I think we're actually gonna call it there for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Monday. It's going to be Chain of Memories, because I did not finish it on Friday like I thought I would. The next time I'm playing Pikmin in particular is going to be on Sunday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night. You had fun? That's glad. That's the most important thing to me. Good night.